Hi, Deborah. How
Hi,
are you?
how are you?
Very happy to be here and be able to participate in a conversation with you sponsored by your gallery, Hutchinson Modern and Contemporary. And it's a wonderful occasion to talk about some very big themes, as well as the fact that you're doing a show right now that's open until March, I believe, right? About
Yeah,
your
it's
personal
open till
vision.
March 8th, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
It's an honor. Um, the fact that you're showing as a Brazilian artist living in Italy and exhibiting in New York on a subject that's of world interest, of course, makes this conversation all the more pressing because we have, uh, you know, 3/4 of an hour in which to distill both your practice, the fact that the gallery has been courageous in signing on to an artist who has a political and social mission as much as an aesthetic one, and taking you on is a political act in itself because I've known you since you were working on the issues of domestic violence, and now you have changed your focus to address really violence against the planet. And maybe you could describe your exhibition, how you're seeking to heal through this beautiful show that you've just done in New York City. Maybe you can talk about how you see this exhibition at Hutchinson Contemporary.
This exhibition is maybe the result of almost 2 years of work that keep going because this work is in progress. I think for me it's a lifelong project, and it deals with situations of violence and abuse against nature. And dealing with nature is particularly special for me. I've always been involved with nature. My father loves nature, and he's amateur gardener. And so when I remember when I was a child, and he would come home for lunch, and he would spend at least half an hour with the plants that he has in his garden. And so my connection with nature has always been quite strong. And I currently live in a city. Actually, I've been always living in a city because I am from São Paulo. And I've been living in Milan for so many years. I lived in New York as well. But I really feel the need to connect with nature. And when that does not happen, it's a big loss for me. And so the exhibition at Isabella is very important because I am showing my main research that's called plant. And from uh, plant is my, let's say, is my main research because I'm creating an archive of endangered plant species, worldwide plant species. And I am registered then in a virtual digital archive, permanent one, unchangeable, as a kind of uh, a symbolic archive of what we risk losing. And that for at Isabella's exhibition, we concentrate on plants from the Americas. And it's particularly the reason is that we wanted to establish a connection with my previous exhibition at the gallery, that the Herbaria is my second show at Herbaria. I had my first show in 2019, and it was Firmamento. And for that reason, by selecting plants from the Americas, we were establishing a strong connection with our first exhibition. And I'm presenting plant I'm presenting plant is the main research. And there are many ramifications. I have many interests in botany. I keep studying, and the subject is very complex and interesting to explore. So we have also in the exhibition, we have this video Plantalia that is also an ongoing work that keeps growing with the plant archive. And I presented a new work called Herbaria, where I'm dealing with extinguished and almost extinguished plant species.
Yeah, I think it's very timely as well that you're addressing the Americas as a whole, particularly with the political climate as it is both in North and South America, and the fact that you are using species that are also a danger in North America. It's so easy to point fingers in Brazil at the loggers in the rainforest and to vilify, the South American desecration, whereas it's exactly from South America that some of the most interesting preservation voices, especially in the cultural field, are coming out. You're probably aware that I did a book with the Argentinian artist Alexandra Quejaglu, who's currently living in Athens, and she's weaving the vanishing landscapes of Argentina, particularly the Pampas, and utilizing her significant creative forces to picture the disappearance of these plants. And I feel that you're doing an analog kind of venture by motivating people emotionally and engaging them intellectually by imaging, giving an image as well as names to these plants, which the study of botany may have been able to do in prior centuries where the link between art and botany was much closer. But in our 21st century, the sciences, unless it's an art program, are far too far away from the arts. And so the interesting cross-pollination that you're doing between your work and a kind of investigative journalism, the type done by a group such as Forensic Architecture in London, and you're using the tried and true tools of conceptual art to create, systems and indexes and inquiry. I find that the practice is so riveting because you are bringing in different knowledge fields and creating a transverse type of analysis without somehow pretending too much. You're not positioning yourself as a botanist. You're not an investigative journalist. You're not only an environmentalist, but you're using techniques from all those different fields to speak a language that will hopefully move people in other fields. So I feel like you're pivoted as an artist and as a maker to enter pretty much many different types of scenarios. And what I would love to see, for example, is more of these cross-pollinations. I love the piece that you did in Genova, the digital billboard, and where you're working in the public sector. I think that can be a very fruitful way for your work to develop, and I'm sure that the gallery is supporting you in that kind of work progress. Our association is, via a certain type of synchronicity of feelings and affinities, so for a number of years, but we worked together through the Ministry of Culture and private enterprise project that I worked on for a number of years on the Villa of Livia. And I just wanted you to speak about that a little bit. As you know, it was a very delicate balancing act because we worked in the public sector with one of the great archaeological sites and ancient gardens of all time, which is the villa and farm of Livia in the north of Rome. And you in particular say you were motivated and moved by the fresco that the Empress, and first, of course, before she was, before it was an empire, the Republican ruler of Rome had created in her underground space, which to me has always been a judgment hall, but you were inspired by her cataloging. And I just wanted you to speak a little bit about what the Villa of Livia fresco, one of the great frescoes of the ancient period, has meant to you.
About Livia's, I cannot thank you enough, because it was you who introduced me to the fresco and to the archaeological site. When I first visit the fresco that is now located at Museo Nazionale Romano, it's really a breaking point for me. The fresco is for someone who loves Roman art and painting. It was a huge emotion for me to be in that situation, and everything that goes around that fresco is quite inspiring for me from many point of views. And when I first see the fresco, I said, how can this fresco be so well preserved? It's a treasure that is very well preserved. And then I went to investigate and learn that the plaster was laid on wood so that it didn't get the humidity of the environment, so it could be preserved that way. And that's very, very interesting. And also, as I'm an artist, but I'm mainly a painter, and seeing that artwork was it presents a great sophistication in painting, because you actually feel that you are stepping into that garden. The techniques using are astonishing for that period, and the way it is done, this garden with no fountains, no columns, just a little fence at the bottom of it, and a cage with a bird. Everything was very, very, very intriguing. Not only the plant species and the birds, the many plant species and birds that were in the fresco, but also the little details of the fresco. And I think it was the convergence of my technological curiosity, because as a background, I am an engineer, and I've always been interested in technology and on the impact of technology on culture and communication. And I was at that time studying coding, artificial intelligence, the blockchain, generative art, and I was investigating on those technologies. And then when I visit the fresco and the archaeological site, I had this inspiration to to recreate endangered plants using artificial intelligence, and then register them in the blockchain as a permanent archive. So I had this inspiration at that moment. But it was not only that. There were many things that had an influence on my work from the fresco. Like for instance, it's amazing as you see plants. There is no seasonality. They are represented at their blooming, fruitful, flourishing moment. No, so you don't have seasonalities, and you don't have geographical borders as well. And this I apply to my work. My work has seasonality. I always look for the time that the plant presents its most characteristic and distinguished way to better represent the plant species. And also,
would you like to show a few images from your PDF there, so that the viewer has a chance to see how you have captured nature in your way?
Yes. This first image here is a Brazilian nut. It's a big tree. Big trees are very important. Big old trees are important because they contain more biodiversity than any other tree. So it's very important to preserve big trees. It happens all the time here in Milan. I went to a seminar some weeks ago, and they were talking about how people keep calling the council and complaining there is this big tree that is I'm risking because it's quite risky. We are in a risky situation because of this big old tree, and they just come and cut it down, and because it's cheaper on the short term. It's cheaper, but on the medium and long term, it's much more expensive. Bigger trees have a huge impact on ecosystems. They are very important because they carry a lot of biodiversity within it. And this plant that we are seeing here pertains to this family of big trees. Like for instance, there is one very interesting case that is the American chestnut. American chestnut is an iconic plant that grows in the whole United States. It's considered in scientific language extinguished because we have very few specimens alive so far. And there is this big project at Penn State University to bring back these species to life. And it is so complicated. It's interesting how these big plants help keeping the whole ecosystem alive. So they are trying to bring it back, not only because it's like iconic tree for the United States, but also because it is very, very important tree for the biodiversity. And they've been investing a lot because they are doing cross hybridizations to create a species that is resistant to the Japanese fungi that is present in the whole United States. So if you just plant the seeds, the plant is going to die because the cause of extinction is still there. So you have to create a plant that is resistant to that factor. And so they have been doing a lot of cross hybridization, but then when you do cross hybridization, you have to consider the biodiversity within the species. This is very important because in the case of monoculture, for instance, when you have to use a lot of pesticides in monoculture because the species, if a bacteria or a pest or an insect appears that destroys all of them. So when you have biodiversity, the species the diffusion of the species is much stronger. And the technology goes pretty fast, but when they are doing this project, they have to consider the time of the plant. So probably all the scientists that are working on this project now, they are not going to see the result in their lifetime. So I like this example because it makes you think that the best thing is to preserve what you have, because bring it back is tough, is difficult, and unfortunately, not always successful. But going back,
do you want to give a quick tour of the gallery show so that people can envision what your project in the gallery space was and how show some more slides so that you can explain how you frame this argument with objects in the gallery so that someone can follow your mental process by the objects that you selected and created.
Okay, just going back to this image, I I went to a long tour. Go back to the image that we are seeing. I think this image, it is an attractive image. It has a certain degree of sensuality. It's beautiful, harmonious, and everything that captures your attention to a big problem. So, and if you spend a little bit more time in this image, you get a sense of loss, of dryness, and I think that's what I like when I build those images, that they review themselves over time, and that they are not exhaustive. It's not everything there. You know, you have to you are not seeing everything. So let me show. This is the gallery. In the gallery, we presented also my paintings because the paintings are important to make that connection to monoculture. What happened during colonialism is that almost all the techniques developed by local indigenous people were lost. Their knowledge was lost in favor of monoculture, extensive monoculture. And we show these paintings because of that, but also because when I recreate the image digitally, I'm recreating this image in my painting style. And this is also another interesting point. So we have go into the gallery. You see 3 paintings from that moment, and then you see herbaria at the back, and then you see also plantalia. We want to build this path where you have to almost look for the information, find out about the things slowly. There are people that are spend a lot of time in the gallery to get to know.
Where do you get the images for the herbaria part? Where do you source your plant images?
Herbaria, the images from for herbaria, they are all come from herbariums. Let me show you. It's here, herbaria. The image for herbaria, they come from herbariums, mostly the New York Botanical Garden herbarium, but also Florida herbarium, Alabama. And I collect materials from specific plants. Here I was trying to concentrate on New York State, but we also have plants from other locations in the United States. And I rebuilt those plants, keeping their fragility, the petals, thin leaves, and this work is presented into 2 forms. There is the installation that you are seeing here, and where you can see the single species. And then there is also the video. In the video, I bring this. It's like I bring this species back to life for a few seconds and then they will vanish into white. The plant that I was talking before, Castanha dentata, the American chestnut, is this one. Each plant has its peculiarities and a different story, but often it comes to almost always the same causes of extinction, and I think it's important to talk about that. The cause of extinctions arrives from far away, arrives from the colonization period. It was the time when we gave up the local indigenous sustainability agriculture in favor of exploratory, extensive monocultures. So go back here. You see, this
These images are beautiful together. I mean, the sequence of them is almost like a natural sequence as you flip through them. It looks alive, just the way it's very filmic. And you have dealt with the filmic, you make your images come alive. Even that one video of the plant, the morphing of the plant thing, it's like you simulate the living process. I like what you said about bringing the specimens back to life as well. One does feel that in your work.
This is
Mhm.
another one that this species, for instance, is in Chile, is in Robinson Crusoe Island, and it exists only two plant species. So when you start getting signals that the plants are going to go into extinction about 10 years or even more before it is really extinct. So there is time to act and to work on the causes of extinction. And this for instance is a Brazilian species that does not exist anymore in nature in Brazil, but they found out some species in Naples, and
I have a similar plant in my garden, actually, strange.
yeah. This is a Brugmansia. There are many different types of Brugmansia, and it's very beautiful plant,
Yeah.
fascinating plant. There
Yeah,
are some
interesting.
also here in Milan in the Orto Botanico di Brera, and
Ah,
different types of Brugmansias.
I saw a lecture recently at John Cabot University organized by a colleague of mine with the Michelle Favorite, with the key climate change scientists of the world, and she basically mapped a scenario where, in 20 years we're gonna have major disaster happening. But her antidote was trees, urban greening and awareness, and creating energy saving techniques, and using green architecture. So, interestingly, a scientist ending her long and impassioned plea to help save the planet with the tools of art and architecture, and working in conjunction with nature and trees. So I do feel that you're totally on trend in terms of your way of depicting the eco crisis we're in. And I see other artists such as Mark Dion or Alexis Rockman or Christiane Löhr, um, Wolfgang Leib. I mean, there are just so many artists who, with the most dramatically poetic means, are tackling this subject. So yeah, I feel like you're on well, not on trend is to trivialize it in a way, but I feel like you're part of a burgeoning movement, and that you have comrades. I saw a recent video installation by Hito Style, again on the morphing of nature, and there's always, there's just a more and more awareness, at least among people who are educated, on the consequences. And I think that your works educate in a way that is absolutely necessary at this point, and can become viral in their own way. Plus, I think it's fascinating that you're positioning yourself as a scientist with the blockchain data registration. So on some level, you're taking on that burden of cataloging that which we should all be cataloging. I don't know where there are other analog experiments, but I haven't heard of any of identifying. Is it something that you feel like is for the public sector, or how do you plan to use your database? Is it an artistic database, or what
It
can
is,
it be utilized for?
it's not encyclopedic, it is an artistic database. My objective with it is to call attention to these issues. And when and there is one author that particularly influenced my work, not only this one, but in general, that is Donna Haraway. I,
Yes.
I like very much her way of proceeding. I watched an online seminar with her and also read her books. And I love particularly the book Staying with the Trouble. where she invites people to accept complexities. Don't try to find easy solutions to things, because when you try to find easy solutions, you are not considering the problem completely. And particularly in the chapter that she's talking about plantation scene, she's investigating the problem of biodiversity loss, and she's suggesting avoid oversimplified solutions. And this is particularly interesting. I was watching an online seminar with these scientists from Washington, that he was talking at the seminar at New York Botanical Garden, and he was talking about climate and biodiversity. And I like it. I like very much that he was staying with the trouble, saying there are certain actions that are in synergy, and there are certain actions that where there is a trade-off. For instance, if you do reforestation, that is planting native species where once they were, this is something positive for both for biodiversity and for climate. Whereas you do afforestation, that you are going to plant species, typically monoculture, corn for biofuels and so on. This is good. This may be good for climate, but it's certainly not good for biodiversity.
Would you like to just scroll to the end of the yeah.
We
have just a few minutes left. Would you like to show some of the video and the way this is a beautiful image.
Yeah, this at the show I presented two videos. This video here, it is the animation is ironically handmade, in the sense it's digitally made. I didn't do this with AI. It is done digitally, and this one is instead I use AI to bring these species back to life.
These images are so evocative that I can see them and also sense, smells, perfume, music. I mean, there's a synesthesia aspect to this. It could really be accompanied by music. You do your own music additions for some of your videos.
With a very important naso in Italy, the Andrea Babic, he developed the scents for 5 of my almost extinct Italian plants from Tuscany. And in the exhibition, in one of my exhibitions, we also used the scents, and it was quite interesting.
That's fabulous. I feel that's also something that museums are beginning to do as well, to engage all the senses. And that's very important also to address all types of audiences. Some people have a higher olfactory sense than they do a visual one. But I think you're communicating on so many registers, which the very nice section on the website of Hutchinson.
Okay.
Hi, Debora.
Hi.
So just to conclude our very nice conversation, the exhibition ends in your physical space with the herbaria, and Hutchinson has very kindly put together an anthology, in a way, of your work on plants to date. What is your next project, or where are you heading with this research now?
I will working with a museum in a very big show in 2026. Actually, there are two shows. And what I try to do is when I'm working with an institution, I try to work in closely contact with the nature of that institution and also the location where I am in. I will be trying to develop new ramifications of the work.
Very nice. And so shall we close our conversation with a presentation of how you bring things to life, such as even this conversation, which has developed in a rhizomatic way out of the work that we did together for the Livia project, and that came in a rhizomatic way out of your work on domestic violence and our conversation in the Centro della Donna in Trastevere when we had that really profound conversation. I do think you intuit things in a very instinctive way, and perhaps your own abilities to make things come to life is well encapsulated in that video. Shall we end with that and thank you and the gallery and Isabella Hutchinson very much for the support and for the invitation to have this.
Thank you, Cornelia. It was a pleasure talking to you.
There's an artist named Miranda Lopez Ortega who is working on botanical models. Of course, I see this curatorially as a project that can be put with the language of other artists and join forces. And of course, also see you working with non-governmental organizations and spreading your message. This is so beautiful.